How you doing, Sports Wars? This is Roy coming at you with a video with Aaron Morris to touch on the college games yesterday. We can make this a little quick hitter for y'all, a little bite-sized portion. I know y'all are used to the big podcasts and Jeremy's videos. We're going to touch on the big stories of the day and get our initial reactions to them. And once again, I am joined by Aaron. How you doing this morning, Aaron?
Not bad, man. Usually for something like this, I would wear my Alabama gear, but it's Sunday. It's the first game of the Chicago Bears versus the team that I will not name. I'm not going to say their name, but
fuck those cheese-eating bastards.
Yeah, Khalil Mack Day, man.
Yeah, Khalil Mack.
Return of the Mack.
Hell yeah, let's do this. But yeah, we today's first NFL game day, first big NFL game day. My team, the Atlanta Falcons, already played on Thursday. Fuck all.
Just real quick. I know we're about to talk about college, but that was an ugly game Thursday night on both sides, man.
Man, it was terrible. I mean, I'm proud of our defense. Our defense did really well, but offense has got to get shit together. Steve Sarkisian, what the fuck, dude?
I was at the gym this morning, and a guy wearing an Eagles Super Bowl T-shirt, and I said something to him, and I was like, man, y'all didn't look like a Super Bowl team on Thursday night. And he was like, nah, we look good. We look good. And I was like, did you watch the same game that I did? Because both teams had a lot of rust. And,
Julio HL secondary alive.
Right, yeah.
But yeah, man, I mean, if the offense continues the way it did on Thursday, then it's going to be a long season. But hopefully we'll get our shit together, and the defense will have to carry us a little bit. But on to the college football. We had our full slate of college football games. Some very good matchups. Some matchups that people thought were going to be very good that ended up not very good.
I think he's looking at you, Florida, South Carolina.
I know, and we can jump right into that. And I'm gonna preface this to let everybody know that I am a Georgia Bulldog fan. I have been my whole life. I've been since the Ray Goff era. So good times, bad times, mostly bad because Mark Richt will he'll tear your heart out. You'll be the best 10-2, 9-3 team in the SEC East, and you'll lose to somebody you got no business losing to. This is the same guy who had Stafford, AJ Green, Knowshon Marino, and a defense full of fucking Pro Bowlers and future Pro Bowlers, and we couldn't beat shit.
Yeah. And now it looks like he's doing the same thing down in Miami.
Yeah, he's doing the exact same thing down in Miami. That's why I was not surprised that week one loss to LSU. Like, that is Mark Richt doing Mark Richt things.
There's no reason that they should have lost to LSU. There's no reason at all.
No. Mark Richt is, don't get me wrong, he's a great guy. I think he's a good coach.
Oh yeah.
But the problem is he will do well enough to set an expectation and fall short of that expectation every year. I'm
wondering if he would have more success being a coordinator somewhere, even if it was like the NFL, you know.
He was an offensive coordinator at Florida State. That's what he was before he got hired at Georgia. Mm-hmm. Because that was the rumor when Jimbo originally got hired. Jimbo Fisher originally got hired at Florida State. The rumor was that it was between Jimbo and Mark Richt, like they were going to try to take Mark Richt from Georgia, because that was second on his list as far as dream jobs go, whereas Miami being his alma mater is first. Miami's going to do well every year. They're gonna be great. They'll win 9, 10, 11 games once every decade. They'll win the ACC. But they'll lose at least one game that year that they weren't supposed to lose, and they won't win any national titles with Mark Richt. But on to Georgia and our current head coaching situation with Kirby Smart, and this was the trendy upset pick in preseason. Everybody kind of circled this game as, oh, South Carolina could do something against Georgia. They could beat them. And Kirby Smart has changed the entire culture around here because in Rick's days, we probably would have got a little nervous. Like, yep, this is a game Mark Richt would have lost.
Yeah.
In Columbia, against South Carolina, they're going to be solid. They'll be 8-4, 9-3 this year. They'll go to a decent bowl game. But this is absolutely a game Mark Richt would have lost. Kirby doesn't, as a guy who's played in these played against South Carolina, he actually had his biggest, one of his biggest games as a college football player. Kirby Smart had one of those games against South Carolina. He recorded 3 sacks. It's actually an unofficial school record for most sacks in a game by a member of the secondary because Kirby Smart played safety. But it was a fun matchup. Actually, the ties between these two teams run pretty deep. I mean, Muschamp was a Georgia Bulldog defensive back before Kirby Smart was. Kirby Smart actually, during one of his first coaching jobs, worked for Will Muschamp and actually crashed on Muschamp's couch. Like that's how deep this goes back. These guys are good friends.
I guess I never really saw hiring Will Muschamp. Like, how much success has this guy had as a head coach?
I mean, for South Carolina, I think he is a very good fit. South Carolina, not to knock them too much, but they aren't. Muschamp at Florida is bad.
Yeah,
because Florida they have a higher expectation. I mean, their previous coach proves that. What's the McElwain?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many SEC East championships did he win? And he was fired by like year 3. So right. I mean, and now Dan Mullen's not starting out very well. But we're going to get to that. I think South Carolina being probably a second tier SEC team is a good fit for him because they'll be excited for 8, 9, 10 win season, the occasional SEC East championship when Georgia, they're hoping, is down, when Tennessee is down, when Florida's down.
See, I don't even think I would consider, I guess, speaking in today's day and age, I don't think I would consider South Carolina a second-tier SEC team. I would probably put them on a third tier because in today's SEC, it's Alabama and Georgia. That's your top-tier teams. And then I would say it's Auburn. LSU should be a second-tier SEC team. They should be because of their standards should be high.
Yeah. I agree.
And then after that, I would say it's your Florida and South Carolina, and then the rest just kind of fall where they are.
I mean, in today's SEC, yes, but I think historically speaking, that top tier is a little wide. Obviously, it's Georgia, Florida, Tennessee in the East, Alabama, Auburn, LSU in the West. Those are the top tier historically speaking. And then right below that, the second tier to me would be like Mississippi State, South Carolina, Ole Miss occasionally. The
only reason I put Ole Miss there too is in the conversation is because with Alabama's dominance the last decade, there's been quite a few years in a row where Ole Miss either beat us or just about beat us.
Yeah, and I mean, but the crazy thing though now is how much of that can be because a lot of their success is kind of to me it seems a little tainted now because I mean all that shit that's come out about recruiting violations and paying their players rent. So I mean that's pretty crazy.
We might not want to dive too. This is going to end up being the SEC podcast. So.
Yeah. But I mean, everybody knows my thoughts on the Georgia South Carolina game. I watched it. The first half made me a little nervous. South Carolina, as always, kept it kind of close in that first half. If you look at the scores of the last, 10, there's very few blowouts. Most of them are very close. As a Georgia fan, I mean, I know South Carolina was a trendy pick, but I expected Georgia to win. I did also expect it to be a little closer than it ended up being.
Yeah.
But second half, to me, the only thing that what it really showed was the depth of these two teams. South Carolina didn't have anybody past the starters, and Georgia. I mean, Georgia's running 3 and 4 deep at running back. Justin Fields, the backup quarterback, came in. He did okay. We're just trying to get him some playing time at the moment. Probably the most telling thing, my favorite quote from the game is earlier this week, they were interviewing South Carolina's wide receiver, Debo Samuel, and asked him about DeAndre Baker, who's a defensive back for Georgia. And Debo Samuel's response was, who? And so after the game was over, DeAndre Baker was seen telling reporters, I bet they know my name now. Because he happened to back it up because he was the guy who intercepted that first pass and ran it back. So, like I said, everybody knows my thoughts on this game. Aaron, what are your thoughts on the Georgia South Carolina?
I mean, you kind of summed it up, man. I did expect Georgia to win, and the same thing. I thought that it was going to be a little bit closer with South Carolina, but you know, it's a rivalry. Almost every game in the SEC, when it's two SEC teams playing each other, is a rivalry. So it was a decent game. I actually didn't even really get to watch it. I had to watch highlights. It didn't come on in my neck of the woods up here. So, but final score 41-17 Georgia. And there's not much else I can say about it, man.
I mean, I was.
It does kind of segue into a different game because this game, Georgia beating South Carolina so handedly, I believe, and I know that you agree with me, other Georgia fans would agree, and I think anybody that just has common sense about college football in general would agree that this should put Georgia into second place in the rankings.
I agree.
This should put them at number 2 because the game that, like I said, this could segue into is that Clemson game where Clemson barely beat Texas A&M, who's unranked, and beat them by what, 2 points?
Yeah, and Texas A&M actually had a chance at the end to tie it. There was a failed 2-point conversion away.
Right. But this goes into my whole thing about that I was talking to you about yesterday. Is it just, and you know this better than everybody. I know all that whole thing, but Georgia always, at some point in the past couple of years, when it comes to the rankings, they always get, to me, in my opinions, screwed somehow as far as rankings goes. And if Mondays when the rankings come out again, right? The poll.
Yeah.
If
actually,
I don't see,
they made. I know early in the season they they sometimes drop them on Sundays. Mondays when the actual playoff rankings come out.
I'm gonna check now. But if Georgia doesn't move into second and Clemson move down to third or even fourth, then I don't really know what to say about that. But that Clemson game shouldn't have ended the way it did with that score.
What's crazy though is I tuned out of the Clemson Texas A&M game because that's a game I started watching. And I stopped watching it because Clemson was up 14-3, and I was like, man, they're just gonna keep running with this, and it's gonna end up something ridiculous.
Okay, so I did just look it up. So this poll came out. This is the AP poll, came out on my screen. It's telling me it was updated 9 hours ago. Alabama, Georgia at 2, Clemson at 3. But it's saying Georgia in parentheses T3. Tied between 3 teams. So it's got Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, Ohio State, Oklahoma rounding out the top 5.
Yeah, they're gonna. Ohio State is usually it's a Big Ten team that benefits from the from the rankings whenever Georgia gets hosed.
Right.
Actually, I see looking at Brett McMurphy's ballot here, and he's got it a little different. He does have Bama, Georgia, Clemson 1, 2, 3, which I have no problem with.
Right.
In that order, I've got no problem with that. He's actually got Auburn 4th and Oklahoma 5th.
Yeah. See, I've got Auburn 6th in the one I'm looking at on Bleacher Report. So to round out the top 10, just for the hell of it, Oklahoma 5th, Auburn, Wisconsin, Washington, Stanford, and West Virginia at 10.
Huh? No Notre Dame. That's interesting.
Yeah, Notre Dame's coming in at 11 and LSU at 12. So I don't know how much stock I put into that one. I guess I'm assuming we'll have to wait until tomorrow to see the real official one that comes out. But
that's there's going to be some shaking in that here pretty soon, because Auburn and LSU play each other next week.
Right.
So that's going to be SEC football, man, is the shit. But that I know the Clemson Texas A&M game, I believe Clemson was at home, so they should have handled that easily. There shouldn't have been any question with that. So I don't know if it's cause for Clemson to panic.
No, they were in Texas.
Oh, they were in Texas. Okay, my mistake. But I don't know if that's truly cause for them to panic, or if it was just kind of a blip. Because I mean, every ranked team has at least one game in the season where if the ball bounces one way or another, it completely changes it. The first half for Georgia, South Carolina was like that. I mean, I actually my day job I was working until like right up until kickoff, and the game started as I was driving home. When I got home, there was like 3 minutes. We're 3 minutes into the game. It was already 14-0 Georgia. So I was like, well, what the shit? And then they didn't score another touchdown until like the second or third quarter. Like, no, it was like the second quarter, third quarter, something like that. So I was very nervous in that first half. But to Clemson, Texas A&M, I don't think Texas A&M has really got anything to hang their heads about. They're supposed to be rebuilding. And they hung with, at the time, the number 2 team in the country. I don't know what it is about Jimbo. He seems to have old Dabo's number. I say give them a year or two when Jimbo gets some guys in place. Mm-hmm. That recruiting money or the booster money to help him out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was surprised at how close this game was. Like I said, I tuned out at 14-3 to go to the next game. I think we're going to talk about a little bit is the streak buster, Kentucky and Florida.
Oof.
Holy hell! Going into that game, Kentucky hadn't beat Florida, not at home, hadn't beat Florida, period, since November 1986. To take that even a step further,
I was a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I was 3. To take that even further, Kentucky hadn't beaten Florida at Florida since 1979.
Jesus.
In my lifetime, I had never seen Kentucky beat Florida at Florida.
Right.
And they did it last night. I'm not gonna lie, this is a little sweet to me because Dan Mullen came in talking a lot of shit. I'm not sure about your feelings towards Dan Mullen back when he was at Mississippi State. He talked a lot of shit last year after Georgia beat the shit out of him. He talked a lot of shit when he got the job at Florida, talking about a blind squirrel finds a nut every now and then. Well, Georgia's gonna that blind squirrel's gonna come see him in October, and we're gonna. If Florida fans thought last year's ass whooping was bad, your coach set you guys up for this one upcoming.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not much to say about this game. It's wild. Congratulations to Kentucky. I know that their whole school is probably going to just be on a high this whole weekend going into next week.
Hell yeah.
And, maybe they carry that momentum and win themselves a few more games. Who knows? Florida, man, I don't know. I don't even know what to say about them right now. I don't know what kind of shape they're in after this, but that's a pretty depressing loss. And a streak that – to some people that might not be a big deal just because it's Kentucky. You've beaten Kentucky since 1979 or whatever, big deal. But, when something like that ends, that's going to hurt your school, man. That's going to hurt your school pride. And
every player that was suited up in that stadium had never seen Kentucky beat Florida.
Right.
That shit is crazy to me.
And now they're gonna have to remember that they're the squad that lost to Kentucky and lost that streak.
Yep.
This coach is the one that's going to have to remember he's the one that coached where they lost to Kentucky.
Yeah.
The first time in, 30-something years. So,
hey, Dan Mullen, Ron Zook didn't even lose to fucking Kentucky.
Right.
So, I mean, And the crazy thing to me is that the part of the game that I watched was right there at the end. Most of the time I watched it, Florida had the ball because they just couldn't piece together much offense. But it was mainly running the ball and stuff like that. The entire time I saw Kentucky on offense, I don't recall them even lining a quarterback up behind center. It was all direct snaps to, I think it's Benny Snell, the running back for Kentucky. It was all direct snaps to that running back. So their offense was so one dimensional that you knew the running back was coming. Now they didn't make any big plays, but they still scored 21 points. They scored more points than Florida did.
Mm-hmm.
And then that play at the end where the defensive end sacked that quarterback and the ball went forward and they didn't blow the play dead, and the Kentucky coach was the only one that realized that the play wasn't blown dead. So he's going crazy on the sidelines, motioning his player to hit the end zone. And let's see, there was one player on the Florida team that didn't give up on it, and it was a guard. Everybody else had started walking to the sidelines. It's crazy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, like you said, the Florida team is gonna have to live with that squad's gonna have to live with award the guys who lost this record. So
yeah,
that's insane to me.
You want to bring up? I mean, we're only going to bring it up because it was a ranked versus ranked game, but Stanford USC didn't look really exciting to me.
No. 20 total points.
I mean, I think you and I and John were playing PUBG while that was happening together.
Yeah. I mean, and I checked on it right there at the end. Just like, hey, man, this, like I said, Stanford's supposed to be pretty solid. They got the Heisman Trophy candidate, Bryce Love, supposedly the best running back in college football this year. And, I mean, he did well. He didn't disappoint with his performance last night. When I finally tuned out, he had over 140 yards rushing. He didn't disappoint. He had a really good game, but I mean, for a matchup of what was supposed to be two ranked teams, supposed to be a pretty good game. Number 10 versus number 17. 17-3 is that's to me that's not typical of Pac-12 games. Usually Pac-12 games you see are like 50-46 and shit like that. And from what I saw, I don't think it was necessary. It was really a product of two like lights out defenses. A 17-3 game in the SEC, you're like, okay, that makes sense because SEC is kind of known for the defenses and the fast defensive players, and Pac-12, yeah, it's like 30-32, like that, those kind of games. And it was just, this one was sloppy. It wasn't fun to watch. The little bit I watched, it was just, it was a slap fight in kindergarten between two kids on the playground about who could get on the monkey bars. Like it was bad.
So I want to just bring up two real quick things, and then if you want, we can move on to like just looking ahead at some of next week's games and giving some predictions. But I want to shout out the running back from Wisconsin. I know that and you said this to me yesterday, they didn't play anybody. They never played anybody. But, to have 240-something rushing yards and 3 touchdowns in one game, no matter who you're playing, there's something to be said about that. So, I would say be on the lookout for whoever that kid. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he had himself a game. The other point I wanted to mention was shout out to Arizona State beating ranked 15 Michigan State. 16-13. So unranked Arizona State upsets Michigan State. I'm sure obviously that's going to drop Michigan State way down in the rankings.
Definitely. And hell, shout out to Herm Edwards. This is his first year as a college coach. Herm, you play to win the game, Edwards. He's doing pretty well. Hopefully Arizona State is a force there in the Pac-12. I don't see why they wouldn't be. Hell, if 16 points is enough to win games, then that's crazy. That's another
No.
Pac-12 team that couldn't score more than 20 points and ended up winning the game. Hell yeah. Arizona State, I happened to catch that there at the end. It looked like it was a close game from what I saw, and ended up just being it ran a little late for me because it's the West Coast game, man. That's one of the reasons I can't really get into the Pac-12 because the time delay and games starting at 11 o'clock at night. I can't really, especially on a day that I work. So
all right. So I'm gonna just look ahead at some of next week's game. I'm gonna shoot them off to you. You tell me who you think's gonna win. I'll chime in. The first one, and it's unranked versus unranked, but I just for the hell of it, Florida State at Syracuse. Who you got in that one?
I'm gonna take Syracuse, or excuse me, not Syracuse. I'm gonna say Florida State. Syracuse, I would think, is going to feel the wrath of FSU. FSU struggled with Stanford yesterday. Was it Stanford or Stanford?
Sam. S-A-M.
Sam Ford.
Sam Ford.
They struggled a little bit with them yesterday.
Who I'd never heard of until yesterday.
I think the reason they struggled is because obviously the previous week was a bit of a letdown. They probably sleepwalked through practice all this week because they're like, hey, we're playing fucking Samford. And on the flip side, Samford is like, hey, we're playing fucking Florida State. Let's get up to this game. And it was just a combination of the two. Whereas now Florida State sees what happens when you don't prepare right. And now Syracuse is just they're just the unhappy or the unlucky first victim. So I think
so. I've got Syracuse. I'm taking Syracuse in this one. Yep. Fuck Florida State. All right. Number 19 ranked national champions, if you want to call them that, UCF, taking on UNC. Who you got in that one?
I'm going to take UCF because North Carolina just got their ass whipped yesterday from somebody that, I don't remember who it was, but somebody they had no business getting their ass whipped by. The youth, Central Florida, the 2017 undefeated co-national champs, who they have a banner hanging up in Kamal's living room. They got a banner hanging up in our buddy's living room. Like he walks past it every time he goes to leave his house. Like they've got him. They're in his head.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you about the. Oh, and I'm taking UCF also, but I'm going to ask you this one just for the hell of it. UTEP taking on Tennessee. Mighty Tennessee Volunteers. You think they're going to get themselves a win?
I think Tennessee's going to take it. That first week was, I think, a blip on the radar for Tennessee, where every SEC team won that first week, but Tennessee. But they turned around. They had a good showing yesterday. I think this is probably going to be closer than Tennessee is gonna hope for. I don't want to say this will be a Florida State Samford kind of deal, but I think Tennessee pulls it out. I think Tennessee pulls it out by less than 10.
Yep. Shout out to Zach Rohn and his Volunteers. So the overhyped, in your opinion, mine too, to a certain degree, the overhyped 8th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish at home against Vanderbilt.
I think Vanderbilt's going to give them a game. I think this one will be in doubt well into the fourth quarter, but I think Notre Dame pulls it out. You say it's at Notre Dame too?
Yeah.
South Bend's a tough place to play, regardless of what team is. Regardless of what Notre Dame is as a team or whoever they're playing. I remember the Georgia Notre Dame game last year in South Bend. How the fuck are they getting all these SEC teams to come to South Bend to play? Like, bring your ass down to Georgia.
I don't know, man. I'm just waiting for Alabama to come back up there in the next year or two whenever they have their string of games. And South Bend's about a 2-hour drive from me, so I'm going to try to get myself to that game.
Yeah, man, that's going to be nice. But yeah, South Bend is always a tough place to play. It's probably top 5, top 10 as far as like college football environment. So I mean, it's a tough place to play.
Very historic place, man.
Yeah, it'll be in doubt to me going well into the fourth, but I do think Notre Dame takes it.
Yeah, me too. LSU heading into Auburn.
If this was Les Miles, I would probably take LSU. This is a game that Les Miles used to get his guys up for, and
I still think that they should have never got rid of him.
Same. I love Les Miles. Les Miles should have probably had about 3 or 4 jobs by now. Les Miles should be the head coach at Texas A&M. I think kind of going back to our earlier conversation, I do think Les Miles is a guy. He's like Muschamp. He's a great coach for like a second tier program. But in this one, LSU Auburn, this is the one that Auburn lost last year after being up like 21 points. So I think they're going to come in pissed. Auburn has they have a tendency to sometimes play down to an opponent.
Mm-hmm.
They got all cocky last year and were up like 21 points, and LSU came back and won it. But I'm going to go Auburn here. Orgeron is going to do his thing like he always does. And
yeah, I'm hoping that this is probably going to be like the best game of the weekend, but I do think Auburn takes it.
You know who Orgeron reminds me of? You've seen anybody who's seen the Water Boy, the dude in the overalls. The comedian's name is Blake Nelson.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Blake Nelson because he's actually from my hometown. He's from Macon, Georgia. But yeah, that's who Orgeron reminds me of. Like I could just imagine him running around with like a straw hat and overalls with no shirt on in LSU practice.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's Auburn's going to take this one. I don't think it's going to be that close. Maybe 2 touchdowns.
Alabama heads into Ole Miss. Obviously, Ole Miss is unranked. I'm taking Alabama in this game, but like I said earlier in the show, Ole Miss always gives Alabama a run, so maybe this will be a good game. This is Alabama's first SEC game of the year, so it's time to. We've been flashy with Tagovailoa the last couple games, and then we put Jalen Hurts in at the end because we've been up so many points because we were playing nobodies basically. But this is the game where they got to put the pedal to the metal and really show that they are the number 1 ranked team as long as they can handedly beat another SEC team. So
yeah, this will be Tua's first full SEC game. The kid's done well. I'm very interested to see what he's going to do against that SEC speed when the team that he's playing has a full week to prepare for him. Ole Miss is a very good way to kind of ease that in. Where's this one at? Is it in Tuscaloosa?
It's in Ole Miss.
All right. So, I mean, hostile environment, SEC defense and speed. I mean, if this was I don't know, if his first start was against like Auburn in Jordan-Hare, that would be bad. Because I mean, he really hasn't been really in enemy territory in the SEC for a full game yet. I mean, technically, the national championship that was in Atlanta, so technically that was Georgia territory. But this will be interesting. I'm not sure who the coach is there in Ole Miss, so I can't really speak on his quality. I don't know who else they really play this year that's really going to test them. I think Ole Miss will make it a game. I think this one's going to be closer than the Auburn LSU game, but I still think Alabama takes it. I'd say Alabama 10 by 10. I think Auburn's going to beat LSU by 14, 21 points.
All right. Well, I'm not going to mention even though you're here, I'm not going to mention the Georgia Middle Tennessee game. I mean, it is what it is. Another, Georgia will be 3-0. The last game that I do want to have your opinion on is Ohio State heading into TCU. TCU is ranked right now as of today at 16. So this is a ranked versus ranked game. And I think this is your favorite coach's last game off suspension, right? Urban Meyer won't be coaching this game. this weekend either.
I would love nothing more than for Ohio State to get the shit kicked out of them in Texas. I will give Ohio State credit. They the last few years they seem to schedule a kind of tough opponent there at the beginning of the year. Last year it was Oklahoma, and that cost them a chance in the playoff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping TCU does the same. TCU being ranked 16th, they're a Big 12 team, so they're not. I mean, it's not a team of they're not bitches. So I'm hoping TCU wins, but I think Ohio State, the players are going to be so kind of cognizant of, hey, let's make sure this isn't a letdown before Urban gets back. Fuck Urban Meyer. Let's make sure that they're going to be so focused on like, hey, you know how to me it's going to be the exact opposite. You know, you always heard the term, oh, they look past this opponent.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is going to be the exact opposite. I think it actually may play out completely different in that they're so focused on this one and making sure that they don't fuck it up that it could probably affect the game plan next week. Luckily, they're playing dog shit next week. If Ohio State is going to lose, it's going to be against TCU this week or Penn State in 2 weeks. I actually don't have a prediction for this. It could go either way at this point. Flip a coin. I'm leaning towards TCU because it's in Texas, and because fuck Urban Meyer. Once again, fuck Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
I'm leaning towards TCU just for that.
I think that Ohio State's going to win. I'd like to see them lose. I'm not going to touch on the Urban Meyer stuff because I just don't care anymore. But I just want to see Ohio State lose because I've never liked the team. I've never been a fan, and I don't want them in the playoffs this year. I want to see them drop down a few notches and come off that high horse. So, but I do think that they're going to win this game either way. Last one. Who's winning tonight? Sunday Night Football. Who you got?
I'm taking the fucking Bears, man.
You're goddamn right you are.
I'm taking the Bears, and not because my co-host is sitting here with me with his Bears hat and his Bears shirt on. It hasn't been subliminal. Actually, they have these two really young linebackers. Two of the three, these two really young linebackers.
Who might they be?
Dear to my heart. They may be Bears now, but they'll always be dogs to me. Mr. Roquan Smith and Leonard Floyd. They'll always be near and dear to me. I'm rooting for these kids. Anyone who is in our Sports Wars group knows that I'm not a particular fan of the quarterback of those cheese-eating bastards. I respect his talent, but I'm not a super fan of his. So I wouldn't mind watching him get the shit kicked out of him tonight by Floyd Smith. And don't forget the Mack truck, the return of the Mack tonight in Chicago. I'm sure Oakland fans are going to be playing like that Sarah McLachlan song when the dog pound commercial.
The dog commercial, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to be playing that in the background with the TV on mute as they're watching Khalil Mack suit up for the Bears. Sorry, Pat.
Yeah, and I just got to say a few things because like they did the Sports Wars podcast last week where they did their Week 1 predictions. I wasn't able to be there. You weren't, so I just want to get your opinion. Jeremy picked the Packers to win. Surprisingly, Brandon, who is a fan of anybody that just looks nice and has colors that he likes, he picked the Bears to win, even though he's a Packers fan. So, I just wanted to throw that in there. A funny quote that I had saw the other day, Akeem Hicks, another defensive player from Chicago, was asked about the offensive line of Green Bay, like the 5 strong offensive linemen, and asked, what he thinks about them now. And his exact words were, "It is what it is. All 5 of them can't hold Khalil Mack." So they got a lot of faith in this man. The defense, I'm excited about it. It's the true return to the term monsters of the Midway. So I'm excited to see this game tonight, man. Football's back. It's a great
man.
week.
It's gonna be fun. The funny thing is, my team played on Thursday. My team lost on Thursday, so I get to focus fully on fantasy football today and kind of bouncing back and forth through all these games. Hopefully, no major injuries. I think this time last year, one of my drafts, I had the first pick in the draft, which I hate, absolutely hate getting the first pick in any draft.
I love it. I love it.
Because the pressure's there. I mean, imagine the pressure's there, man. You can.
Yeah, sure it is. But I like having that back-to-back on the way back, that snake around where you get two in a row.
And see, that's my thing is I like having, like, in all my drafts this year, I had the last pick. So I had that back-to-back like that.
Well, in our league, I had 9th pick, and Julio was sitting there. So I took him first pick, and, he got me 35 points the other night. So
yeah, Julio had
pretty satisfied.
Game. So, I mean, like last year I had David Johnson, and he went down week 1, fucked me. And now this year, pretty much most people who had a top 5 pick drafted Le'Veon Bell. So,
yeah.
So I think we're gonna. It's getting about that time where we're recording this pretty early in the morning. It's getting about that time where the pregame's about to start. About to see guys in pads doing stretching and shit on the field. I'm just going to turn that on and just bask in it for a second. So,
and then if you guys like this college football talk, I know we talked a little bit of pro sports, but I just had to. But I think next week we'll continue to do it. We'll probably have your brother John on with us. He was just a little under the weather today, and then. If this is on YouTube, let us know in the comments who you got in next week's games. The ones that we made our predictions on. Let's interact and talk some college football shit. So we don't get enough of that in the channel right now. So we want to bring not only NFL stuff to you guys, but college stuff as well, because we're all big fans of college football too. So except for LaRock, but yeah.
Hell yeah, like, man, I'm always down to talk college football. I will talk myself. My wife will tell you I talk myself some blue in the face, period. But I'll definitely talk myself football, college, pro. And luckily, we're past that time of year where we're anticipating any kind of football. Like I watched 2 bums throw a football in an alley back in August. So luckily, football season is upon us. Week 1 in the NFL today, and we're getting into the meat of the season. It's going to start conference play here very soon in college football. So this is a great time of the year. We won't be without football until February. So
yes, sir.
It's always awesome. Well, as always, thanks for tuning in. Be sure to like and subscribe below. As Aaron said, leave us some comments. Talk shit. We love it. Talk shit. Join us in our Sports Wars group. Check us out on iTunes, Podbean. That's where the podcasts go.
Patreon.com/Geeks and Gamers. If you guys care to be a Patreon, we've got lots of new tiers now, lots of perks where you can get stuff. There's even a perk now. I think it's the diamond level of Patreon where you get to be a guest on one of our podcasts if you want to. So if you choose to donate that high, you can pick a podcast that you would like to be on. We're going to be rolling that out in the next, probably by the end of September. I talked to Pat, got our first guest lined up. So exciting stuff, man. Check us out on Patreon, YouTube, of course, all that good stuff. So
that's what's up. Well, y'all take it easy and come back and see us again next week.
Roll Tide.